This past weekend, college football was a wild one with several upsets and down-to-the-wire finishes. I'm here with our college football experts, Blake Snetman and David Flynt, to make sense of all the madness. So, guys, we got to talk about Georgia first. They lost 36-16 to SEC opponent LSU. Obviously, they're out of the top four. How far do they fall, and can they make the playoff this year?
So I still think they're in the top 10, and I think they will make a push for the playoffs. I think they're in a lot better position this year than Alabama was when they took a loss at their very last game last season. But I don't see them making the playoffs. I think their schedule has not been that tough thus far in the season. They beat LSU. They lost to LSU. They also played South Carolina. Challenges coming up. They have number 11 Florida. They're also playing Auburn, who beat Washington in their opener and lost to LSU by 1.
LSU is always a tough place to play at home, but Georgia can get back and make the playoffs, but they've got to get to Atlanta, get to the SEC championship game, and beat probably Alabama, maybe LSU.
Oh, I can agree. They have to win that championship, the SEC championship game, no matter what, in order to get there.
So they got to win out and win the SEC, right?
All
right,
yes.
So let's go. Georgia's out. We know that. Who is your new top four, David?
My top four right now, Alabama's number 1. They've rolled over everybody they've played. Clemson is still number 2. They survived their scare at Syracuse. Really, there's nobody else in the ACC that can compete with them other than Syracuse, I think. Because, I mean, Virginia Tech lost to Old Dominion, and while that might have been a fluke, they're still not as good as they were rated. Number 3 is Ohio State. If they can get past Michigan, and Ohio State, Michigan, throw records out the window for that one. That's going to be a scrap, whoever's there. But Penn State gets the nod there, I think. So Ohio State at 3, and Notre Dame at 4. They've just done enough this year. Didn't play well versus Pitt, and Pitt's a terrible team, but sometimes you have those mulligan games, and as long as Notre Dame stays undefeated, they should be in the top 4.
Yeah, so my ranking's a little different. I have Alabama at 1, unanimous. It's pretty obvious with them. My number 2 is actually Notre Dame. So Notre Dame actually beat Michigan, who was 14. It was a close one. They beat Stanford. They beat Virginia Tech. I just like their schedule, how they played those games. Yeah, they did have that bad game. Like you said, everyone does have that. At 3, I have Ohio State. Big win against Penn State, going into Penn State and playing that game late night on primetime football. That was tough, and the way they played was impressive. Clemson, they're my 4. They're undefeated, so I have to put them in the top 4. They almost lost to Syracuse, almost lost to Texas A&M. They had a little quarterback controversy, a little drama. I just think that's a little much. And their schedule hasn't been too challenging thus far in the season. It hasn't done enough for me to put them at the higher part of the top 4.
So you guys have the same teams, different order. We're sticking in the top 10, though. So UCF, they're 6-0. They had 31-30, great comeback win against Memphis. But they have not yet to crack the top 5 this season or last. Oh, they won 18 straight games. What do they have to do to make the top 4, and can they make the playoff at all this year?
They have no chance of making the playoffs in my mind. They should not make the playoffs in my mind. The caliber of teams that they play is just simply not good enough to be able to make the playoffs. Yeah, they can be undefeated, but I'm sure at least the top 15 in the AP rankings would also beat those teams that they're playing. And they don't deserve. You have to have a tough schedule.
No question. I mean, yes, South Florida's in the top 25, but UConn had to come back against Memphis, Tulsa, Houston. I mean, Cincinnati's decent, but other than that, who in the American is worth bragging about beating? And don't claim to me that using the legend Vern Lundquist to announce your conference as a Power 6 conference on your commercial makes you a conference worth of the playoffs, because you're not.
Oh, yeah. I just don't see it at all. And I think the closest thing to a good team they have is FAU, because Lane Kiffin was affiliated with the University of Alabama.
Right.
But
UCF
that's about
has to do something. In their defense, though, teams like Texas are dropping them from their schedule. The Big 12 doesn't want them. They got to do something, though. That's all the time we have left for college football. When we come back, we'll talk some way too early college basketball.